Australia's manufacturing destruction. Hi everyone and welcome to Ainslie Insights, brought to you by Ainslie Bullion, Ainslie Crypto and the Gold and Silver Standard. Today we welcome back Alex, who's been looking at an issue close to home and close to her heart, I have to say, about where we're heading in Australia with manufacturing. How are you going today, Alex? I'm going very well. Looking at your article and looking at what you're talking about generally with manufacturing in Australia, it's something we have talked about in the past, but really focusing in on it today got me a little bit concerned, probably on the back of what we've been hearing out of the US, because obviously there's a push there to move back to manufacturing. But when you look domestically, there's some issues here as well that you've highlighted. So I thought, could we start off today by looking at what the long-term consequences are of the fact that Australia really has deindustrialised, and we've started to see some issues with that starting to flow through.
Yeah, look, I mean, what got me started on this was hearing that basically the last glass manufacturing place in Australia looks like it's done. That's on the back of the last plastic manufacturers last year. They're done. We are not producing basic raw materials. And it's not that those plants are big. There's huge expenditure to get them up and running. You know, if now something happens, the world ends up in war, or we're shut off from the US, which, you know, everyone's becoming more and more isolationist. We literally have no capabilities to build manufacturing back in this country. So we are just sitting alone in an island in the Southern Hemisphere looking like absolute schmucks right now. I think New Zealand has more capabilities than us now.
That's not usually something we want to hear, particularly when we're talking about manufacturing or something that's so integral to an economy. You also went down another path in this article that I wanted to tie together, because I think the two are probably related, where you're talking about unemployment, and you were really highlighting that there's a stark contrast between what the ABS is saying and what you're seeing in Roy Morgan's data. And that potentially reveals that we're not getting the full story by those official ABS numbers.
No, so since about 2006-7, Roy Morgan does its own analysis of unemployment, which is basically people looking for employment. Whereas the ABS does its unemployment number on people who are employed, who they do categorise as people who have worked 1 hour. So if you jump in an Uber for 1 hour, you're counted as employed. What has happened over time and is consistent, like the ABS underemployment or unemployed number is actually 10.1%, whereas Roy Morgan's is around 11.5%. So really, Roy Morgan is showing the the underemployment is unemployment, and it is growing by time. Like right now, February usually is a good month for growth. We come for employment growth. We come out of Christmas, people go fresh start, new job, companies hire. We did not see the bump in February that we've seen for the last 2 decades. It's woeful what is going on, and on top of not seeing the February bump, the Roy Morgan figures got further apart from the ABS figures. So underemployment is just growing and growing and growing.
And I suspect the link there is really that manufacturing, traditionally at least, was a major employer. And that's something that we need to consider, because when you think about what's happened over the last 2 decades, really, there's been a significant reduction in that manufacturing side. So those jobs would have shifted potentially to services. But if you've got a weakening economy, those jobs may not be there to pick up the slack when that...
If the world hits a recession, manufacturing sort of balances things out. You know, if you need glass, everyone needs glass because, you know, their window's broken, they need glass. So it just steadies the swings. Now, without it, and if we do go into a recession, which it's starting to look more and more like we are, we have nothing to steady this ship, and we have nothing to grow off to steady the ship, because we have systematically destroyed the productive economy over the last, 1973, 25% of Australia, so because around 1.4 million Australians were employed in manufacturing, with a population of 7 million people. Now we're looking at, 900,000 people employed in it, with a population closer to 30 million people. We have systematically destroyed the productive part of the economy. Now, at first there was a shift into mining, But as that obviously becomes more and more, use of robotics, less people needed, heavier equipment can be used, replacing people, there's less people required. What we've been shifting to is the productive economy into the unproductive economy, where we've got people, looking after people on NDIS. It was something like 83% of jobs last year were healthcare and services that, I fully support, except for the definite rorting that is going on in that area. But you can't get rid of productive jobs. Like, we are just becoming a country that looks after itself and produces nothing. It's not going to help us long term.
And I need to dig in a little bit more on one angle that you just spoke about there, which was the mining, because we do think of ourselves as a mining country, but you're starting to look at the potential, at least, that there could be some competition around. And when you think about the really seismic shifts that are going on in geopolitics at the moment, it's not unreasonable to think that some other areas that maybe were not considered the mining powerhouses of the world suddenly become major players in that space. And that is another area that we go, well, hang on a second, we've been relying on mining to pick up the slack for all this time. If we lose that real competitive advantage there, there's some real risks.
Yeah, there's really good mines opening up. My friends who are in mining tell me that Australia, is under risk because there are great iron ore mines in Brazil. Look at the rare earth minerals. We are not world leading in that. We are actually world leading in probably uranium and gas, and we've absolutely rooted those two. So, the things that we actually probably can sustain competitive advantage, we're ruined. So, iron ore, gold's pretty good at the moment in particular. There's good mines opening up.
I was at a AI conference just yesterday, and someone on the panel there was actually highlighting a similar point to what you're making, saying that we're not even leading in that space. They were using Canva as the example, saying we've got like one company that's really leading in any way, shape, or form there. But that was an opportunity because we could have taken a lead there, but we sort of fell behind. And they were making a very similar point around this whole concept of where is our industry going to be if we lose and aren't necessarily able to rely on mining to pick up the slack. So it is a concern in that space.
I mean, everyone's upset about Trump, I guess, targeting countries like Canada and Australia and the UK. I do think it's pretty brutal. But at the end of the day, what he's actually doing is highlighting how weak we are. Now, if it wasn't Trump, it was going to be someone else. At some point, the allies that have been around since the Second World War, well, that's 80 years old. Things change. Anyone who was around then is now dead. And he is basically saying, we want to manufacture, we want to do this, and you over there, you're sending us too much stuff. I don't like it. Someone was going to do this if it wasn't him, and it's just highlighting the Western world's vulnerabilities and how weak we have become and how susceptible we are to the world for what is going to happen into the future.
I want to wrap up on one area that I know you're very passionate about. You've talked about a number of times, and that's it's a good example, I suppose, of this at play that you've been highlighting the whole time, and that's Australia's gas exports and the domestic pricing. You've talked about this quite a bit, but maybe you can wrap this up using that as a bit of a analog, if you like, to what the potential is across a broad spectrum of the economy here.
So when we manufactured, and we manufactured well, we had excellent energy policy. That was, we were building coal plants, which, if we don't believe in that, we've got lots of uranium. Let's flip it a bit. I don't really care what we do here, but have a good energy policy. Gas is a good thing in the middle while we have a chance to catch up on an energy policy, because I can tell you solar and wind, too unreliable, batteries are not there yet, huge infrastructure upgrades, we're not there. So, we probably need to have some gas electricity plants in the interim. The US, Trump got up last week and said, yay, look at us, lowest gas prices in 4 years. Well, Australia is at least 4 or 5 times what we were 4 years ago, and we are the biggest or second biggest exporter of gas in the world. We could import gas from Japan that we have sent Japan back to Australia cheaper than we are buying it from our gas companies. We have destroyed our competitive advantage, and either someone gets on to, if it's not going to be gas, get us there. Build some uranium power plants, build some coal plants, whatever we need to do. But if we do not have something in the middle, this is just going to keep going down. And then the other part of this is decide what our minimum manufacturing capabilities need to be. Decide what we need as, if it's glass for our buildings, which I would suggest, it would be nice if we could make our own glass one day. Put some tariffs or some means in place just to keep it here, keep our capabilities so we can build something. Don't destroy everything so we look like a little yellow duck in the middle of the Pacific Ocean right now.
A little yellow duck that somehow finds it cheaper to import the same gas that it's exported to Japan. What a way
And the
what a way to wrap
glass
up.
that we're getting from overseas is probably using our gas to make it, and we can't get it cheap
Yeah.
enough here. What have
Look,
we done?
don't go too far down that rabbit hole. You'll shake your head too hard, it'll fall off. Look, thank you as always, Alex, for enlightening us on all of that, and taking us down those rabbit holes. I always enjoy that. So thank you very much for your work on it.
Thank you for letting me have another little rant today. It's been
Al-
stewing.
Always love them, and so does our audience. So thank you very much. Thank you everyone for watching. We'll chat again soon.